Our Flag Means Death Season 2 is coming and I'm so excited. Hi, I'm Becky. If you enjoyed Neil Buchanan on Art Attack as a kid, and you also enjoy watching an 80-year-old woman trapped in the body of a 26-year-old being vaguely creepy, you might want to stick around because that is very much my vibe. Today we are talking about pirates. More specifically, we are talking about the gay pirates that are on the television, because Our Flag Means Death Season 2 is just around the corner. Now, in the depths of my grief about Season 1 ending on that cliffhanger, might I add, I decided that I wanted to make a pirate shirt. Now, I've already done this once. I made a beige one about a year ago, and do you know what? I don't really wear it. There are a few reasons for this. One, it is too short, and it is too high cut on the neck. Two, it's not a colour I normally wear. Whereas when I look at Ed, Taika Waititi, dressed as Blackbeard, that is very much my style. And in fact, I would almost go as far to say my gender. My gender is probably at least 10% pirate. And that's the thing, I have loved pirate stories since I was quite little. I grew up on the original Pirates of the Caribbean trilogy, and there is definitely something about taking to the sea in order to find out who you are in terms of your capabilities, your personality, your likes, your dislikes, your gender and sexuality, and coming into your power because you are outside of society's norms. If we think about Elizabeth Swann's storyline, she goes from being this very heteronormative feminine girl who's not really allowed out of the house to, at the end of the third film, being the Pirate King, which in itself is an interesting comment on gender because King is generally a man. You know, she's wearing trousers, she has her own ship, she has her own crew, she is making decisions not just for herself, but for people around her and taking responsibility for those decisions. And at the end, she makes a really, really hard decision, which leads to her living most of her life alone. More on alone later. But given I love that storyline, when someone said, right, there's basically a sitcom and it's Reese from Flight of the Conchords and Taika Waititi as pirates. So yeah, if you fancy sticking around, we're gonna go and look through the process of me making a pirate shirt by hand in black linen. If you are also celebrating the release, if you're doing anything for it, let me know in the comments. Without further ado, here is the process of making a black 18th century Blackbeard style pirate shirt. The first thing that I did was I went to a massive fabric shop in the kind of more industrial bit of Birmingham. They have floor to ceiling rolls of incredible fabric. You can find pretty much whatever you need in there. I found the tiny section that contained all of the linen. I went for, it's not pure linen, it's got a little bit of stretch to it, but I figured that would be okay for this project because it was slightly more affordable. And I got, I think it was probably 2 meters of it in the end, and brought that home with me. I was at my grandparents' when I was doing the measuring and cutting out, and it's essentially squares and rectangles. This is one of the simplest hand sewing, historic sewing projects that you can do. It's great for beginners and it's great for learning techniques like thread pulling and hand felling seams. The thing that makes this one slightly more complicated, I think, is the fact that I did it in black, using black thread, which does start to hurt your eyes after a while. So I cut all of my pieces out to my measurements, and I started off by just hemming the bottom of the shirt, which is the largest rectangle that the project is made out of. I then ironed that, and I also ironed my cuffs and my collar. So what I've got here is the collar. I don't actually know if it's going to be long enough, to be honest, but we'll give it a go. What I need to do is iron it flat and then iron it in half. The really fun thing about having a black and white cat who loves sitting on bits of fabric is that everything ends up covered in white fur. So I think the final step for this project is going to be rollering every single bit of fabric. Yeah. Got that. As I mentioned a minute ago, I spent 3 months of this year living on my own, which was really exciting. I'd never done it before. I've got a low battery warning. And this was something that I spent my time doing while I was living alone. So I sat out in my garden just hand sewing. There's something really nice and meditative about hand sewing projects, and actually I've got really into hand sewing as a result, because you don't need lots of equipment and stuff with you to be able to do it. When I was talking earlier about taking to the high seas and finding yourself, this period felt like I was testing out how I would do on my own, having never lived properly alone. And you know, I haven't bought a boat and set sail. I stayed where I was, but it was definitely an interesting experiment and an insight into the things maybe that I'd let slip, or things that I needed more of or less of, that I could really work out, because it was just me. Well, I say it was just me, it was me, Binks and Luna the cat. And I did really enjoy it. I'm glad I did it. I'm glad I've tried living on my own. I think sometimes you can go from living with friends at university to moving in with a partner and you've never actually tried it. Some of the things that I worked out that I definitely enjoy and need more of is time by myself. I am quite an introverted person. One thing that I learned that I think, I guess it's kind of a theme of Our Flag Means Death, is that I can do it. Like, you can do it on your own. You are more capable than you thought you were. We'll say a couple of disasters happened. I stood on a rusty nail in the garden and it went through my shoe and ended up embedded in my foot. I then had to pull it back out. On the same day my car battery died, so I was dealing with both of those things simultaneously. I dealt with a cat with depression who stopped eating. I dealt with water coming in through the ceiling over there. You can do it. You can do it on your own, and sometimes it's really hard, but when the only person you've got to rely on is you, because quite frankly Binks is no help, you step up, you find ways to make it work. And I have to say, like, it's made me feel a lot more confident and self-sufficient, and I think it's probably helped a little bit in my relationship for me to be less dependent on Alex. So that was really positive. Anyway, back to the pirate shirt. What I then did was insert the sleeves. That's kind of the next step. So what I was doing in the garden was doing those French seams down the inside. What I then needed to do was attach the gussets and the cuffs. Okay, so we're at the sort of in-between stage in this process, in that we've got a sleeve. These have been pinned into place so that there'll be French seams, and what that will look like when it's done is this, which I realise is really hard to pick up on camera, but I will show you that in more detail in a second. We've then got the gussets, which are going to go in this fold in the fabric and then be attached to the shirt body. We've got the collar, which is going around the top, and we've also got a couple of cuffs that I'm going to sew like that and then turn inside out, and those are going to go around the outside of this section. But what I've realised is this is quite tight. If I put my arm through, you can see I'm really having to be quite careful with how I'm pulling that. And so I think we're going to need to let this out just a tiny bit, or maybe put button detail just there, so that it's still beautifully gathered, but it's a little bit more room. A word on French seams. Now, these are incredible for adding strength to a garment. They are also a nightmare if you are using black thread and black fabric, because you're trying to make sure that they're even on both sides. So what you've got to do is stitch 2 completely straight lines through this fabric that is sort of folded over once and then folded again, so that the seam is completely contained. Now, they look beautiful, but proceed with caution because they are agonising. So yeah, that's just a quick note on those ones. And the cuffs were quite delicate, you know, because the sleeve was gathered. I had to wedge quite a lot into a small cuff. So I sat just doing that while listening to an audiobook, which was really lovely. And Ian Forster, A Room with a View. You don't get a sense of humour from the film, but by gosh you do if you listen to an audiobook, and he is hilarious, very dry, and very, very queer, so again, relevant for this video. And then once I'd done that, I made sure to whip stitch the inside, so that's how I did the inside of the cuff. One thing I've since noticed is before I show you the shirt right at the end, I need to add a button because my wrists are quite small. So to get my hand through, the opening needed to be larger, but I then need to be able to like cuff it properly around my wrist to get the proper shape in the end. So there were 2 things I was excited about and hoped would come out this year. One of them was Good Omens, and of course we had that. And Neil was obviously listening to the fans on Tumblr. I was very pleased with the way they did that series. And the other thing was Our Flag Means Death. Now, strangely, season 1 of Our Flag Means Death and season 2 of Good Omens ended on an incredibly similar note. And it's not an ending I've seen particularly frequently, but it's weird that it happened twice. Now, I think it's worth saying the reason I like this TV show is not because I particularly like real life pirates. They were interesting, but they were also kind of terrible people. The reason I like this show is because pirates seem to come along with certain themes that we've seen throughout kind of literature, theatre, and more recently TV and film. And there seems to be an association between taking to the high seas and finding oneself, normally outside of the social norms of the time. In Our Flag Means Death, they're kind of historic norms, but there also are current norms because it's not really historical fiction. Let's be very honest. Taika Waititi has gone, we're going to do a sitcom and it's going to be conveniently dropped into the 18th century because it's fun and there are things that we can play with there, but it's not historically accurate by any means. So, with the new season coming out, and also just because I was sad that we didn't have a new season for so long, I decided I wanted to make a pirate shirt. Once I'd finished assembling both of the sleeves and it looked like they were going to fit nicely on my arm, the next stage was going to be to attach them to the body of the shirt. So I had to mark roughly where the gussets were going to go, and I also had to accommodate the fact that I was gathering the top of the sleeve so that it fit me nicely and had a bit of a sort of splayed out effect from the shoulder. So I marked that with tailor's chalk and then I inserted both of the sleeves into the large square. So that's one side inserted and the other side still needing to be done. So first things first, I'm going to stitch up here to this line so that we've actually got an armhole. Then I'm going to pin the arm inside the armhole and stitch around. Now, the key thing with this is that you've got to make sure that your sleeve, when it goes into the hole, has the seams on the inside, because then when you turn it out, all of the seams will be on the same side of the shirt. I've made this mistake before where I have sewn the sleeve the wrong side out and then turned it inside out, and you've got all these lovely neat edges next to the inside seam. I'm probably also going to do a little enclosed seam for the side seams, because otherwise this is all going to fray and be messy and not very stable. But that is a job for after I've finished constructing, because this has taken me far too long already. Plus, I've got to cut the neck hole and bind that and add the collar. That is the bit that fills me with dread, because once you cut in there, you can't undo it. You can only make the hole bigger. The most nerve-wracking part of this process was definitely cutting the neck hole. I knew that I'd made it too shallow in the V last time, and I didn't want to do that again. I also knew that once you cut into this thing, there was not really any making the hole smaller, only bigger. So I had to make sure that the head and neck hole were in the right place. I have to admit, sometimes I am not the most accurate sewer. Sometimes I just go for it. And that is definitely what I did in this case. But I'm quite happy with how it looked. Hello, we're doing the nerve-wracking bit. We are going to be using this to measure a hole there. I can't actually see if I'm showing you. Okay, let's have a look. Yes, so this to measure a hole there that I'm going to cut. So essentially, we lay that there. We are going to cut to there. Actually, this is where that tailor's chalk that I now cannot find would come in real handy. So I'm going to grab that and then let's do this. Right, can't find the tailor's chalk, so we're going to do this in what generations of women in my family would call the slapdash method, which is where we go, yeah, that looks about right. And snip. Okay. No, I'm not left-handed, but this will do. And then, which do we want the front to be, this side or this side? Once I'd cut the neck hole, I tried the shirt on to get a gist of the general shape, and I was thrilled. I was thrilled with how it looked. So much better than the cream one, in my opinion. Being attacked by a plant. Yes, we can see. Okay, let's try it on. It'll look great with this dress. Okay, right. Want my head to go through the hole? Don't know. Goes through easier. Okay. So the collar is just going to sit like that on there. I realise that this is really, really hard to see because black on black, yeah, but it will sit there. I don't know if this could be long enough to wear as a dress. I'm not sure it quite covers my bum at the back, but this with leggings, ahoy. And then all that was left to do was attach the collar, do a little bit of finishing just on the bottom of the neckline, and we were done. So yeah, here is the finished shirt. landlocked in the bit of the country that I live in. So maybe at some point I'll be able to take photos of it on the seafront, blowing in the breeze. But for now, I'm quite happy lounging around in it. I feel like I need a pair of cycle shorts to go under it with a pair of trainers, just to give it that, you know, Gen Z edge. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you've enjoyed seeing this project. I've got some littler ones in the works, including some Halloweeny stuff, so I'm hoping to show you that very soon. But for now, let us set sail into Taika Waititi's mind. Enjoy Our Flag Means Death if you're watching it. Until next time, I'll see you very soon.